Welcome. I'd like to call the meeting of February 20th to order, and if you would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Please note for the record that all council members are present.
May I have a report out on the closed session?
The council met in closed session. The two items came up of pending potential litigation. No action or direction was given.
Thank you. I'd like to get a motion to adopt the agenda. I do have a request from the member of the public to remove item G from the consent calendar, and I would be happy to do that. Any other changes or additions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to close in memory of longtime Brisbane residents, Bernice Arthurs, who passed away recently.
Okay. And with that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Let's go on to presentations and awards. We have some information about the new City of Brisbane website.
Closed session.
We did report out.
You get report out? Okay.
We did.
Did we? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You were asleep.
I guess so.
Hey, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I have the pleasure of giving you a sneak peek at what will be the city's redesigned website, and I have just 6 slides to go through tonight. So everyone is familiar with the website on your screen. It's a site we've had since October of 2010. We, and by we I mean CJ McDonald, our current web developer, and myself, have strived to keep the homepage as visually appealing as we possibly could while offering ease of access to various pages that are frequented by visitors of our site. Reviewing analytics from the past month, the 7 most popular pages on our city's website are the Community Pool page, Mission Blue Center page, the Parks and Recreation About page, the Bids and Solicitations page, the Planning Division page, Utilities page, and the Marina About page. You might know that the Community Pool page has actually been the most popular page on our website since its inception. And so over the years, as we've come across different data, we've tried to highlight that in our current site by having links to those pages directly from our homepage. Just going to go over on the next slide some of the key differences on the new site, which will be a Municode site. So it will be responsive, a mobile-friendly design. Back in October of 2010, pinch to zoom was still acceptable. But with the new site, we'll have the hamburger menu item that you see on a lot of mobile sites when you go from your iPad or your phone. So we'll have that. It will adjust itself to any screen. The ability to quickly update the homepage if there's an emergency situation and you want to quickly notify the public. We'll have a banner that will drop down the first inch on the homepage, so we can customize that with any emergency alert information. We have a lot of events that we feature on our city website calendar, so we'll finally have an add to calendar feature that you see on, say, Evite or Eventbrite. If you see something that you want to make sure you don't miss, you can add that to your personal calendar. There's going to be social media integration, so a share this button on to your personal Facebook or Twitter feed. We're also going to be rolling out a new meeting and agenda management system in line with the website, so we're going to have more streamlined creation of, approval, and posting of meeting agendas and minutes. And tied to this is going to be the ability to have timestamping for YouTube videos. As you know, we've been archiving all the city public meeting videos on YouTube since about 2009. But now we'll have the ability, as we get more use of the software, we can maybe the city clerk during the meetings or directly after the meetings, and those at staff public meetings can have the start and end time of the agenda item, so that when someone goes and looks at the video on demand after the meeting has taken place, they can jump directly to that portion of the video that they're interested in.
Oh my god, that is so nice.
Yeah, it'll be really great.
Wow, that's great.
You don't have to scroll through anymore. We've heard from the community over the years that just to have a nice one-stop shop of all the city projects or current projects that are going on in town. So we'll have a map feature and a list of all city projects or current projects. And related to that, there are certain projects that are going to have a lot more to them. For instance, the Baylands. So there's ability to have a departmental microsite, so a site within a site. We've done that already with the Baylands and took a lot of the information from the Home for All convenings last year and put them onto a separate microsite. So that'll all be carried over onto the new site as well, so we retain that. There's going to be tiles to aid in visually structuring content. So sometimes you can be scrolling on a pretty long page, and so now there's going to be built-in templates so that staff can add tiles to properly segment the content on the page better. And a dynamic sitemap will be available. So as pages get added, then it'll be very easy for the end user to navigate on the site. Related to that is a dynamic search bar. So we'll see this on this slide has the homepage of the new site. You can't tell or see it in action right now, but the middle section has that search bar, which is made more prominent and centered on the page. And we'll have the ability to customize the search items, like topic areas of interest at any given time. So for instance, what's the latest news on the Baylands is just something that the developer has put in there and is based off of analytics. We can see what are things of interest and we can customize it at any time. I'll also point out we'll have like the departmental menus up here. This is categorized by government, departments, community, business. The current projects portal will be there. This city news button will, when you click on it, it'll rise up and show you the latest news information that's been posted. We have a portal to the Parks and Recreation pages right there, and so that's just a glimpse of the current page, and as you can see, the social media interactions over there. Let's see, on the next slide, I just wanted to point out the departmental pages they'll be structured similarly to this, where we've moved all of the staff and facility contact information to the right-hand side of the screen and have hours of operation, so that's more easy for the public to find. And this last slide has what the new meeting management and agenda management system will look like. It's very similar to our current all meetings page, but you'll see the icon for video is there, where you'll be able to go to jump directly to that item that you're looking for. Of course, we're gonna have more meetings on this page. The last few years of meetings will be available on the new site. We were limited in the amount of pages that we could migrate over, and so given the wealth of information on our current site, not just in meetings, but largely due to meeting agendas, minutes, and videos, we wanted to make sure that those were retained in and accessible to the public to access. It's widely utilized internally by staff too as a resource. And so CJ, I just want to thank him for his time and his efforts in working with me these past 10 years. And we're going to still be working in a reduced capacity together, so he'll be helping to keep the current site live and accessible, but it's going to be a much more stripped down version of the site that it is right now, where it's mostly going to have our meetings, and then there's going to be historical information that the public can access about projects such as the Baylands available, and there'll be a link from the current site, from the new site to the current site. Like, say if you're looking for a meeting agenda from 2011, then you'll see a link to access it. And then it'll be very clear. We've already set up an additional domain, archive.brisbaneca.org, so that as MuniCode is building the new site and linking back to what will be the archive site, that no links are going to be broken and things can be still accessed seamlessly. So we have meeting agendas that go back to 2005 currently, that we felt if we have them accessible electronically right now on our site, that we should continue to offer that. So we look forward to when the new website launches in mid-March. You might have noticed with this meeting's agenda that the template for the agenda itself looked a little bit different, and so the other committees and commissions will also have that same look and feel to the agenda, so everything will have a consistent look to them. And we just hope that as the new site launches, that both together with the archive site, they'll be a great resource and service to anyone who visits us online. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this point, but that concludes my presentation.
I have none.
Thank you, Carolyn. When do you expect the new site to be live?
The second week of March.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great job, Caroline. It looks fantastic, and yeah, I think I'm not really technically up to speed. So I'm kind of like the older generation, but I know that these new things are really important to folks who are, and yeah, I'm glad that the city is staying on top of things in that area. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you,
Caroline.
You're welcome.
Look forward to seeing how to navigate on it.
Yeah, we hope that
Yeah.
the visual aids
Looks a
will
lot
help
easier.
everyone to find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.
That brings us to oral communications number 1. I have one slip, and that's from Michelle Salmon.
It's bright.
Michelle Salmon, Brisbane resident. I can confirm what Carolyn said about the swimming pool. In our aerobics class, we've looked at a lot of other sites to find other classes while the pool was closed, and everybody says that our site is the best and has the most information up to date on the pool. So compliments on that. But what I wanted to talk about is the new Google bus parking lot, and I'm finding it very problematic for a lot of reasons. One is the amount of light coming from there at night is absolutely horrific. I was driving home from the marina the other night and I thought, what is that? Are they doing some kind of construction? Is there a stadium or something? I mean, it was as bright as stadium lights radiating into the sky. I couldn't even see what it was. All I could see was the radiant light coming up in the sky. And so as I drove over the bridge, I'm kind of looking behind me going, huh. So I drove up on the hill so I could see what it was, and I was absolutely shocked at the amount of light that's put out by a parking lot on the Baylands. I hope that's not portentous of things to come, and it is definitely against our dark sky initiatives that we're starting and that we've been working on with open space and ecology. So I think that really needs to be addressed, as well as some of the other businesses. The new lights in the Midtown parking lot, although a lot of people like them, they are really bright and they shine into the street, and they are kind of blinding when you're coming down the street at night. But the other thing that really concerns me about the Google parking lot is safety issues. Tunnel Road is a very narrow, poorly maintained road with no shoulder whatsoever that's now been blocked off by huge concrete barriers. And I commuted on that road for many years going towards the city every day. And already there was a heavy amount of traffic. The addition of the paratransit buses had already created a huge impact where they would just pull out in front of you and then lumber along at 10 miles less than the speed limit, which I believe is 35 miles an hour on Tunnel Road. Very few people maintain that low of a speed. And There's no place to ditch if somebody pushes you off the road because of the concrete barriers. And believe me, I almost lost my life on Tunnel Road with an 80-mile-an-hour head-on with a drunk driver back in 1980. And I would be dead if those barriers had been there at that time. It might have made some of you happy because I wouldn't be here bitching about this. But it really is unsafe. And those barriers need to go. The road needs to be widened. And there's a huge amount of fugitive dust coming off that lot already. I drove by there the day that it was really windy, 2 Sundays ago. And besides all the huge amount of dust that was coming off the Bayland soil processing, and yes, I did call Bay Area Air Quality Control, there was a huge amount of fugitive dust also coming off of that lot and the extra lot that Sierra Point Lumber has. And that's just really not acceptable. And I think we've created a really unsafe situation besides a heavy amount of traffic on a very poorly maintained, narrow road with poor freeway access. So I really hope that you address this. I was shocked that this got approved by the Planning Commission. I was intending to go and the meeting got canceled and I couldn't make the next meeting where it got moved forward. But I think that we've created an extremely unsafe situation, and I'm concerned that someone will lose their life in this. And, driving this road for years in the morning, I've seen people pass other people on that road, people who are doing the speed limit, and somebody zooms around them at 60 miles an hour. I've seen the tanker trucks coming off of Old Bay Shore and onto Tunnel Road to go over the bridge and never stop at that stoplight, to make the left turn. They just come barreling through, and I think that we've added to an already dangerous situation, and it needs to be addressed. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michelle. I have no other slips. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address us in oral communications? No? Then we will move on to the consent calendar. And we have items A through F. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then I did pull item G because Ray Miller wanted to comment or have staff report. Would you step up to the microphone, please?
So, council members, I'm bringing this issue up. What issue is that? Well, the sustainability manager in particular, because, as many of you know, I have a long-time relationship with the Open Space and Ecology Committee and a deep commitment to sustainability. And so I'm actually quite pleased that you're moving ahead with both of these managerial positions. I think it's fine, and it'll be a good promotion for the people involved, and so I think it's a fine idea. And I also want to add that I think that the committee over the years has been extremely fortunate in having tremendously competent staff work. And I'm thinking in particular of the ones that I'm familiar with, namely Fred Smith and Karen Kinzer, who have been absolutely extraordinary, not only really smart, but really dedicated to the issues that the Open Space and Ecology Committee has been dealing with for 20 years now. So anyway, my intervention is really a couple of suggestions, because I'm a little bit concerned, not the way things are running now. I think they're running just great now. What I'm concerned about is when you put something in writing, it may last for many more years than the people who are currently occupying positions. Council members turn over, staff turns over. Things in writing tend to last a lot longer. And so I thought maybe a couple of additional things might help us think about that future when the people involved are different. So it's not a matter of what it is now, it's a matter of putting things in writing that will give us a better direction for the future. And so what I've done After I had a conversation with the Open Space and Ecology Committee last night, and so we talked about it there, and there was a generally positive response, and they said, well, why don't you go to the council meeting tomorrow night? And so I said, okay, I will. And then I thought, I remember in the past people have said, if you have some specific suggestions, put it in writing so that it's easier for the council and the staff to deal with rather than just oral remarks. So I had prepared a couple of suggestions that I would like to make for the job description of the sustainability manager. And I have some copies. I guess I should get them first. Should be enough copies for the council meeting. So I would like just to read through them, and just some of them are pretty self-evident. The first one I might want to the first one I might want to explain a little because I have shared my suggestions with the city manager, and so he's aware of them. But I haven't really talked with him, so he just knows what they are, but I haven't given reasons for the suggestions I'm making. So I have them listed underneath the sections of the job description. And the first one is under the supervision received and exercised. And I notice that under the communications director, the supervision hierarchy is the city manager and the deputy city manager, which suggests the citywide, community-wide importance of communications. But I felt that sustainability is also a citywide, community-wide responsibility. And in order to sort of communicate that importance, I thought maybe, and this is not intended to change anything that's the way it's set up now, it's just intended to communicate to the future that this is a citywide concern and responsibility. And that's why I changed it to be the same as the communications manager, to, of course, stick with the director of public works, but also add the city manager as the total city representative. And then under the examples of important and essential duties, these are the things that didn't seem to me were explicitly enough stated. The first was the implementation of the sustainability framework. I didn't see that mentioned anywhere. Also, I think it's important that the sustainability manager works with all the departments. And public works has a lot to do with sustainability, but so does community development. I think it's also important that they review the sustainability aspects of the general plan and bring that to the attention of the various parties involved. I think another important area that I've been concerned with for years is the performance metrics. And I think really the indicators of success in the principles of sustainability and the sustainability framework. I mean, it's very important how people are actually achieving the objectives or not. And so how do you know that? Well, you have to measure them. That's the whole point. And so somebody has to pay attention to that, make recommendations on the indicators, and work with the staff. And in this case, I thought even report to the council at least once a year. Okay, how are we doing on all these sustainability things that we're trying to achieve? And then another thing that I felt wasn't mentioned there, but I think it should be, and that is for this person to keep up to date on the Habitat Conservation Plan, make recommendations to OSEC, and also to the city manager, who is a trustee for the HCP. So these were just other things I felt were additional matters that could be added. It just sort of making it more evident what the responsibilities are and what some of the more general statements actually mean in terms of specifics. And so I hope that you will consider them either this evening or in a subsequent time as kind of a further elaboration as to what the sustainability manager is going to do, which I think is a really important position. I mean, we are very famous for and really believe deeply in being at the head of the race in sustainability, and this, to me, is a way of assuring that continues. So, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. So, have you had a chance to look at any of these items, Clay?
Yours is not on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're not close enough.
Oh, it's on.
One of the two.
Very, very briefly. So just a couple of comments. First, I'd like to thank Ray for his acknowledgement of the work that staff has done for the committee over the years and the people who have been involved with that. And I would concur that they've been very dedicated to the Open Space Committee as well as the sustainability program in the city. So I appreciate his kind words with regards to that. What I would suggest tonight is that I think we all would like to move forward with this, is that you adopt what's in your packet, but provide or direction to the city manager to make amendments to the job description as I seem appropriate based on the input that's been provided tonight.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any
discussion?
Any discussion?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Ray for his input on this. I think that sometimes it does get lost in what a job description is and what a real role is and responsibilities. So it's good to keep that open and keep looking at it so that we have the continuity going forward. But we have a motion on the table by
me. Seconded by him.
and seconded. So for all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay. That moves us to new business, item A, and it is our mid-year budget report from our finance director, Stuart Schillinger.
Thank you. I'll do this fairly briefly tonight. The news is good. We have more revenues than we anticipated. We have slightly more expenditures than we had thought 2 years ago. The staff report outlines the major issues that we have. As you can see, sales tax is still doing quite well, as I reported at the end of last year. We're projecting about $5.7 million in sales tax this year. Also, Sierra Point is doing, as you know, the construction's happening there. We're getting more money in plan check fees, building permit fees, and fire fees for that. We are getting more money in our Educational Relief Augmentation Fund. That is coming from the school districts in the county are becoming more and more dependent on their own personal property taxes, and they don't need assistance from other property taxes throughout the county. So that's what's going on, why we're getting more money in. The expenditure side, there's a number of different projects which I outlined in the staff report as to what's causing some of that difference in anticipated expenditures. Based on all of that, we anticipate having more money in revenues than we have in expenditures, and staff is recommending putting $250,000 reserved for future payments for plan checks and building permit work. So what happens with building permits and plan checks, we get the money in 1 year, but the building takes more than a year to build. So there's work being done continuously on it for a number of years. We just want to make sure we have enough money to pay for that in the future, and we're not running off of the current revenues. Then the remainder of the available funds, what staff is recommending is based on the city council policy of putting 50% of excess revenues over expenditures into the pension trust fund, and then 50% for capital projects. So the staff is recommending $175,000 placed in the city's pension trust fund and $175,000 for future capital projects. We're not making any recommendations on those capital projects at this date because I know there's a number of different capital projects that you may be hearing about for the remainder of this year. We may want to look at it maybe as part of the budget going forward, or if there's a time that we want to look at capital projects. But we're just recommending that we just set that aside for the future.
That makes sense.
Great. Well, thank you. It's always good when we continue to have good financial data to keep us going and give us a blueprint for going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
Okay. Moving along to staff reports. Oh, I'm sorry. I did remember you had 2 items. Sure, Mr. Miller. Dr. Miller.
Honorable.
Former mayor, honorable
Oh, my goodness.
Mr.
Thank
Miller.
you.
So many
Dr.
titles.
Mr. Miller.
I'll be embarrassed. I'll blush. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things about the budget. One of which is to reiterate what actually Clark has quoted me saying a couple of times, many times over the years, that there isn't anything more important that the council does than the budget, because it sets all of the priorities. It really sets the allocation of the resources of the city. The budget is the most important thing that you do. And I guess I'm in the mood for praising people this evening because I think you're really lucky to have a fantastic finance director. And Stuart, that's not because we're both Syracuse alums. It's because I think he really is fantastic and we're really lucky. And so I would like to encourage that not only does the council recognize how lucky we are and how important the budget is, but that we spend some more time involving the budget in the involving the public, in the budgetary process. Because, as some of you have noted, the budget is not exactly the most scintillating subject matter so far as the general public is concerned. But on the other hand, it's extremely important because you really are setting the priorities and you determine, where the city's going to go and where the money's going to go, and so, there isn't anything more important. So I would hope that, and this is what my pitch for tonight is, that you will make an effort to do more of a community outreach for budgetary information. I would hope that it would always be part of the state of the city. And I would also hope that maybe something we've talked about in the past before is that we even set up a citizens committee, to be a part of understanding what the budget's all about. I really think it's important that people know what you all are doing and the decisions you're making and the priorities that are being set, and the budget is really where it's at. But it takes a lot of effort to get it out there. And so I really urge you to consider doing that in some effective way or other. So, thank you.
Perhaps we can put it as a big drop down when we're having our next budgetary meeting on our new website.
It's always been a challenge for years, Ray. People just don't get excited about it. I mean, you're the only one, that's, as a citizen that, pretty much, is consistently, likes to see what's going on budgetary wise. And I remember when we had the citizens things that we used to do, like down at the community center, where people would get involved and they see what the functions are of the city, the city departments, each one, and they really kind of got into it, but for some reason they never grasped the budget part, and so that's a tough one, because numbers don't excite everybody, I mean. being a former economic professor, I mean, you understand that. So it's a tough challenge. Certainly, I think for councils in the future, for sure. Anyway, thanks for being there all the time.
And we'll try to figure out a way to liven it up.
Yeah, and I got to say, we are lucky, and with Stuart, and I had said this, I think at our last meeting or meeting before last, that from Stuart's guidance on our budget, that we're one of the few cities that didn't get really hosed in that downturn, and that was because of Stuart's recommendation, that we don't pool our money with the county and stuff like that, and that saved us from a lot of pain, financial pain, and that part I'll never forget. That Stuart's guiding hand there has been very sound through the years, and he's always conservative on his budget, and so it's always exciting news when we get the mid-year report. It's like, how much we have now? Yay! All right, thank you, Stuart. So thank you, Stuart. Yeah. And Clay for hiring him.
Okay. So now we will move on to staff reports.
So the first one is the notice for preparation on the Baylands development submittal. Went out, I believe, today. There's a 30-day comment period. There will be a scoping meeting here at City Hall on March 4th at 7 p.m. And the public is invited to come to that.
Clay, could you just give a little bit more explanation about what that meeting will be on the 4th?
Sure. Go back to that. So the scoping meeting is to go through the environmental subject matters. So there will be a presentation on the describing what is being applied for by the Brisbane Baylands development, and then all of the environmental issues under CEQA that would trigger, and the various agencies that will be involved in a lot of the different subject matters. And then it will be an invitation for people to comment on that if there's subject matters that they think need to be addressed or would like to see emphasized. Whatever their comments are would be taken at that time. People can also write in comments during this period of time, or send it into the city through our website. So we can take public comments from a variety of different sources.
Okay, so the council will not be at the dais.
No, this is not a council meeting. This is, I believe, Mayor Pro Tem Cunningham will do a welcome, but it's not a formal council meeting. Lloyd Zola, our longtime environmental consultant on this project, will be leading the meeting.
Okay, so then the podium will be turned around and then facing the audience.
I believe so. I'm not sure that I know that detail at this point, but I believe so. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
So during that portion, will the comments that we approved when we did the initial EIR and approved the initial EIR with our comments of things that needed to be addressed in a final or a specific plan EIR, those comments will be carried forward into this process?
I would think so. I'll check with John and the legal team on that, but certainly the items that were raised by the council at the time that you certified the program level EIR, we will definitely make sure that those are part of the record for going forward, and those issues would be addressed in the project level.
Because some of those items were things that we felt were inadequately described for a further drill down. So yeah. I just want to make sure we don't need to resubmit those comments, or would we as the city resubmit those comments into this?
No, I mean, as a city, we can just, we have the latitude to take the comments from the past and incorporate those and make sure that they're addressed in the EIR.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure we're covering those bases.
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, cornhole.
Cornhole tournament is a week from tomorrow at the Community Park Gazebo, starting at 7 o'clock. You can still sign up on our website or in the Recreation Department. Registration ends tomorrow, though.
Get your cornhole teams together, huh?
Yes, we had quite a few the last time we did this. It ended up being pretty popular. So the vote, the California primary, as you are aware, is coming up. We will be doing a City Hall vote center here in this room. That starts, I believe, on Saturday the 29th and runs through Tuesday at 8 p.m. And then finally, the Luna Fest will be, the second annual Luna Fest will be on Saturday, March 28th at 5 o'clock, starting with the screening at 6 o'clock. And am I correct that there's dancing afterwards?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I know that the subcommittee on LunaFest has been working very hard to make this year more successful than last year, so I think it's going to be a great event. So we'll move on to countywide assignments subcommittee reports. And Cliff, would you like to start off your list?
Yeah, so Madison and I, we met for the Star City Music Festival ad hoc subcommittee. So I thought maybe we had talked about this before, but not moving forward with the Star City Music Festival, just because it was costing the city a lot of money. It didn't bring in the revenue that we all hoped that it would. We gave it a shot for 3 years, but in the end, it just didn't. But we also know that people love music in our town, and we're hoping to extend the concerts in the park and have a Saturday one. So this would be, I guess, the Saturday after the last Friday concert in the park. So instead of having a nighttime one, we'd have a daytime one. And so that then we could still partner that with the half marathon, which has been successful and continues to grow. And the half marathon provided money for the Lions Club, also for Mountain Watch, the El Camino cross country team. They were the volunteers. They were the beneficiaries. They worked a couple of days to help put on the race. We're also looking at providing revenue from the race to help cover the cost for the bands. And then also looking at raising money for Best BTO if they're interested in having a beer garden and having the runners as part of their race fee, have a little beer coupon that would go, a $5 coupon that would go to Best BTO. So, so I guess does that come back to the council, or is that just part of the Park and Rec Concert in the Park series?
Yeah, we're just going to consider it part of the Parks Concerts in the Park series, and staff will find a band for that day based on if the city council is in agreement with that idea. But yeah, that was the direction from the subcommittee, that we would go ahead and find a band. The band would be probably playing from 12 to 1:30, do a DJ beforehand maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So make it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Lions Club would do food, so they would have a fundraising opportunity. There'd be no cost.
Right.
So there would be less staff. There'd be less police presence, more like what is typical for a normal concert in the park.
Right. As we reported to the subcommittee, I think it was costing us about $17,000 each of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
the attendance in last year was less than the attendance in the year before. So as opposed to growing the series, it seemed as if it was beginning to shrink, and it just did not seem to be providing the benefits that the city council had hoped for 3 years ago. And as we had talked about 3 years ago when we started, is that if it wasn't a successful event, we would end it. And I think that was a direction from the subcommittee. But there is a recognition that there is always an enjoyment of having a band that we can dance to. So we're going to be looking for that in the middle for that August Saturday.
Yeah, and like Concerts in the Park, that's a free event for the community, and so unlike Star City Music Festival where you had to buy a ticket, this will be free as well.
Our people don't like to buy tickets particularly. They like free. Hence the budget problems.
They like to buy LunaFest tickets, but...
Or lack of interest, I should say, not.
True. Well, they don't like to buy tickets for things that are free otherwise. It's really hard, I think, when we have multiple weeks in a row of free concerts and then a week directly following one of those, we have a concert that's $20 or $25. So that's what I think is really the holdup in a place that's like a public place, and the offerings are similar to what they have been getting for free. So I think it's just really a hard ask, to get people to pay for something that they've been getting for free for 5 weeks, essentially. Of course, it's a little bit of a better experience, but I think in people's minds it's just a hurdle that it's hard to get over.
Mm-hmm. And then I had a community.org meeting this morning, and there's a commuter symposium at the Genesis Tower in South San Francisco on March 9th. It's from, I think, 9 to 1 o'clock. And if anyone's interested in attending, learning more about commuter options that don't involve single occupancy vehicles, please attend. And then I had my last CCAG meeting last Thursday, and I don't recall anything significant that would affect Brisbane, coming from that meeting. But it was nice serving, and I know that you really enjoyed that experience, Mayor O'Connell. And I know, Clark, you always had talked about, every council member should have opportunity to serve at the county level, and being a member of CCAG, is a great opportunity to do that. And I know Councilmember Karen Cunningham, you'll really enjoy being a part of that.
We'll see.
A lot of work, too.
We'll see.
Not just showing up. It's a lot of work on that. That's an important committee to be on, so.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm on the next one. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So the library JPA never ceases to amaze me where the county is going with the expansion of items for young and old that are going to be coming through the library system moving forward. They're coming up with some incredible ideas that are going to be fomented and brought through during the summer. The kids programs are just something that I could never have imagined was going to come out of a library. So that's actually a really, really fun board for me to be on, and it's really exciting to see where we're going with offerings all the way through, from really, really little kids to our seniors, and having the quiet rooms where people can actually go sit and read that newspaper is still going to exist as well. So I really enjoy being on that. You want me to talk about?
Oh, I wanted to add something to that, actually. Sure. So I don't know if this is something that's existed for a long time, and I've just been living in a hole, but I found out, just recently, that that we have access to this Discover and Go program. Does everyone know about this? Okay, so Discover and Go program allows you to get tickets for like a number of attractions and mostly like educational things like museums, and you just go onto the website, onto the library website, and then you go, there's like services or some tab. It's called Discover and Go. So you just put in your library card number, and then you can get free tickets. So it's good for one adult and one child per library card number, and you get one use per year for each of the museums. So like if you want to go to the De Young, you can get a free ticket for the De Young like anytime. So you're not limited to when they normally have their free museum days. Or you can go to the Legion of Honor. There's all these, there's even like not very educational, but the Napa Valley Wine Train. It's a discount. It's not a free ticket. But like there's a lot of really interesting free things throughout the Bay Area that you can use your library card, and they just you don't have to like go pick up a pass or anything. You could just print it right from your house and bring the ticket in, and you get one per calendar year per place. So if you use yours on the Legion of Honor this year, you could get another one next year. Yeah. So there's so many options. You could probably go to like one free museum every month if you wanted to. It's very cool.
They're also negotiating with a lot of businesses in the county and a lot of restaurants in the county and a lot of facilities in the county that for some people it would be prohibitively expensive to go to. And again, with your library card, and I'm just totally amazed at the amount of work these people are doing. That your library card is going to get you a discount at this particular restaurant or whatever. So it's really expensive. It's quite phenomenal what they're doing. Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten this email, but I know my mom got this email that like I got one where it says I need to come in to confirm my.
I did get that because I
was like, is this spam?
Legion of Honor and.
We'll have to come in to confirm your address.
Yeah, I never did that.
I think because they're offering so much, and there's so much resources coming out of the county going into the library system, financially. They've hired some amazing people, and so I'm assuming that's what that's all about.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a great perk, though. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go ahead and do the
well,
I'm on everything else.
I was going to say, you're on the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had the Public Arts Selection Committee, and we met with Galen Smith again, the artist, and went over a couple of the changes to the artwork that is proposed, and we're meeting with him again next week, and I'm pretty excited the direction that he's going in. I'm more excited now than I was in the past, so looking forward to seeing where that comes up, and it's been a pleasure working with him. He's a really phenomenal young man, and I'm sure he would be available just to advise us on other art things moving forward, just as a gift. He's just that kind of guy. So that was that.
All right. Oh,
Clark, did you have any subcommittees?
No.
Nope.
Okay. So.
That I remember.
We met for LunaFest, and we discussed kind of where we are at with sponsorships, and just kind of really the LunaFest subcommittees at this point are just kind of checking in to see where everyone is at with their responsibilities and commitments, how much sponsorship money has been raised, how many tickets have been sold, that sort of thing. Tickets are available. The event's March 28th. You can purchase tickets at tinyurl.com/LunaFest2020. The banners went up along visitation. Not sure if everyone's seen them, but they're there advertising LunaFest. And so far we're in a really good spot in terms of sponsorships, but we could always use more sponsorships. So if anybody out there who's watching has an interest, we are looking not only for corporate sponsorships, but also individual sponsorships, which we will accept in any form for individuals. And then for corporate sponsorships, there are different levels. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to give you more information. The other meeting I had was the Cannabis Issues Ad Hoc Subcommittee with Mayor O'Connell, and we met to kind of review what the Planning Commission's recommendations were regarding cannabis retail in the city of Brisbane. And so our discussion started just kind of understanding, what their thought process was and what they recommended. We did have some residents come to those meetings, and they asked questions and voiced concerns. The concerns seem to be around placement of retail storefronts. Mostly the concerns were regarding visitation, San Bruno, or the Village, and the underlying sort of concern with that was these are places where children maybe walk consistently or frequent. There was also a traffic concern in those areas as well. And then some people were outright opposed to all storefronts. Some people were just kind of interested in limiting the locations or the amount overall in the city of Brisbane. So there was kind of varied levels of concern there. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. We did have people from the cannabis industry who were present, who also provided their thoughts regarding those concerns too. Just saying, providing when residents would come forward with concerns, sometimes the industry sort of representatives would address those concerns, so there was a little bit of a back and forth discussion. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's anything else to add, but
I think part of what I took from this is that there's a lot of information out there that we need to get more information on how a storefront may or may not affect traffic, and what the visibility is, what the safety measures are, what's going to be put in place. And I think the biggest thing that I brought back was that if the council does move forward with allowing cannabis retail, that we would be the ones to put whatever safety and security and requirements on that establishment, and that we really need to look at how we can put those in place so there's the minimal impact to our residents and our children. So I think it all needs some more looking at as far as what measures we could put into an ordinance to make it compatible with our city. So we're not ready to bring it back yet, and there's still more information to be gathered.
Yeah, I've been getting quite a bit of feedback from residents, and none of the feedback has been positive. That there is that fear, and then I've also received requests from some folks in the cannabis industry to hear them out. So it's just, but I agree with what you're saying about taking that approach and not having it ready for prime time until you thoroughly vet it out.
Until we've vetted it out, yeah. So
I think also there's some fears from the public that are really come from a place of having never visited a dispensary before. And so there's some assumptions about who frequents dispensaries or what they're like inside or how they advertise, how accessible they are to children, those sorts of things. So I think not only is it some education that we need to have, but I think there are some things that if somebody isn't familiar with the industry, they could get really concerned about. But some of the concerns were clear that these people had never maybe visited a dispensary before, understand the regulations around how those work, and what's required. Let's say if you step inside one of them, what the process is like. There seemed to be a lot of feeling that it would be like a liquor store where kids you could just walk in and just buy something. So it'll be interesting as we wade kind of through this process. But I think the big thing that Terry and I gathered was that this is obviously a decision that requires a lot of thought, a lot of planning, and really trying to come up with, if this is something we did want to move forward with, how could we make sure whatever businesses we did approve in those locations really kind of fit in with what we think is best for Brisbane. So I think we all kind of agreed on that sort of perspective and intent at the end of that meeting.
The other one good takeaway that we had from these meetings was that the representatives of the cannabis business are more than welcome and willing to invite members of the public to really see what they're doing and how they're doing it. So they're willing to work with us to have tours or have informational things, which you always benefit from seeing what reality is on the ground. And so we'll just have to see how that progresses.
Yeah.
May I add some feedback as well? Sure. So the feedback that I have been getting is more the fear of Main Street being the place where parents are walking their kids down through Main Street to the library, to the Midtown Market, then walking down to Main Street being this main thoroughfare of pedestrian walkways. And the concerns that were brought to my attention were, people hotboxing in their cars, people outside of a pot shop smoking pot, and the kids walking through, and then they've got a 4-year-old asking the question, "What's that?" and having to explain to a little kid as they're just walking down to the store. So it was more.
We had that same sort of.
Yeah. So
we might have talked to the same person.
Excuse me. Is this something we're going to discuss in March 19th? Because I got I've never weighed in on this issue at all. And I've got a lot to say about it, but I think the appropriate.
Oh, it's not. This shouldn't be a discussion.
Yeah,
it really shouldn't.
I mean,
it
be sounds
discussion.
like it's
We're
going
just
to discussion.
Discussing what we heard in our subcommittee meeting.
Yeah,
and we're going a little further.
I think.
So.
Okay.
Cut it.
Okay, we can move on. Did you have any other subcommittees to report out on?
Nope.
Madison? Okay, so we have on the list that we had the airport noise subcommittee, and that was really in the meeting prior, but I don't think we reported out. One of the things that we talked about is some of the extremely loud flights and how we can advocate for noise reporting so that those concerns of the public get met and noticed by the airport and by the roundtable, and also to follow up with the ANEEM system of sound measurement, and which I found out at our next meeting of the roundtable that they cannot use the ANEEM's system until it is approved by the state of California as a method of calculating noise and disturbances, and until that happens, they cannot use that system. So it's sort of out of the airport's ability to measure sound that way. And then I also attended the ABAG special meeting on Friday, where we accepted funds that will be used to help in the planning process for housing and regional housing assessment needs. Brisbane was a small recipient of part of that grant money, but we had to accept as a body the monies for that. And then they had a very in-depth workshop on what the regional housing assessment is going to be in the Bay Area and how the state is going to be looking at how they calculate what responsibilities are going to be for housing assessments, and then how the county may or may not allocate those, or I should say ABAG, it's more than just the county, but the Bay Area will allocate those numbers between the different cities. It was all informational. It was all really scary. And we will have to see how that all plays out. You know, these are 8-year cycles that can have impacts on what's mandated and how we do our zoning. So we'll see how that all plays out, but it was quite an interesting and lively debate.
Are they still talking about like double the amount of units?
No, they're talking about triple.
Triple the amount of units?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And right now, our committee, once they get the numbers from the state, are trying to decide how they would weigh and balance, whether it's just based on jobs, whether it's based on income, you know, and so wealth of services in an area, transit. They've got all these different parameters, but they have not decided what parameter they're going to use.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay.
And no decisions were made. And I think that is it for me in the last 2 weeks.
You know, Madam Mayor, there was something that I forgot to mention. So at the commute.org meeting this morning, we had a presentation from someone from San Francisco. And Clay, I'm hoping that you can perhaps work with John Ford to get the contact information from this person from the city. But in July, I think starting July 8th, from July 8th to July 30th, there's this deck that's on 101. So if you're heading north, from Alamany exit to where, if you're heading south, the 280 split, they're going to replace that deck.
Oh.
Right, and
They calling it Carmageddon. The amount of traffic that's going to trigger.
Just giving you all a fair warning, and they should come to Brisbane and give a presentation to the council and explain, how they're going to deviate traffic. And so one of the things that
they said just like don't drive.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Just stay away.
No,
That's what I've heard.
They asked feedback from commute.org, members. So, one of the things that I had mentioned is that, at least on streets like Sunset Boulevard, where the lights are timed, perhaps they can make 3rd Street like that, to at least get the flow of traffic going to the city. But it's going to be nuts. So
isn't it like 9 months or so? No. It's a
very short period of time.
Okay, good. I heard it was going to be like months.
No, they're hoping to wrap it by the end of July. So from July 8th to the 30th, and the way that they're doing it, it could be as little as 9 days. But don't.
We're not going to advertise that. It's never going to be the shortest time. It's never like that. It's always the longest time.
They got it all worked out where they're going to have these segments built somewhere else, and then they're going to transport them and lay them into place. So we'll see.
Okay.
It's like everything.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have an update on City Council, Commission, and Committee applications.
Mayor and Council, at the last council meeting, the council gave direction to extend the City Council, Commission, and Committee deadline to February 19th, 2020 at 8 p.m. So given that, we received 19 applications. I wanted to add, though, that as of this afternoon, we received a resignation letter from OSEC committee member Meg Ackenbrock. So that means that there's going to be 2 seats plus 1 seat term till 2020 to fill for OSEC.
2022.
I'm sorry, 2022. So I'd be happy to send out doodle polls to schedule 2 interview dates for these interview meeting dates in March, and I can confirm at the next City Council meeting on March 5th for those dates.
I think that'd be good. I think that's the best way to sort of herd us into a group for those 2 nights.
You know, I don't know if this is smart, but it could be Cliff is not going to be able to sit through any of the Park and Rec interviews.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to sit through any of the. He's Park and Rec, and I'm Public Art. So it might be nice if, on the 2 days, the first set is Park and Rec, and the next day this first set is Public Art. Because before it was like I had this 30-minute segment of just sitting outside. So if I could arrive after all of the interviews have been conducted, I don't have to sit for 40 and 45 minutes. Yeah, and same with Cliff, because then we're just sitting out there in a chair for 45 minutes waiting for everyone to finish talking before we can go back into the room.
I think that's a good idea to be able to do that.
Okay. So, Ingrid, you said you're going to send out a doodle poll to the council to choose dates?
Yes, that's correct. The dates will probably be sometime after March 5th.
After March 5th, okay.
Okay. And then we have the City Council meeting schedule. And I think we're just acknowledging that.
Yeah, there's no changes. We're looking at the potential of not having to have the July 16th meeting, which would give you July and August recess.
Wow.
We deserve a raise.
Okay, can I make a motion?
I'm not committing. I'm just letting you know what I'm working on.
That would be wonderful if that were to be able to be continued throughout the scheduling period.
Okay, we will do our best.
Then we have written communications, and I had it here a minute ago. We had Danny Liu from the Chinese Real Estate Association inviting us to the Chinese Real Estate Association of America Installation Gala. A letter from Jessica Aloff regarding cannabis storefronts in Brisbane. She is opposed. And a resignation letter from Meg Engenbrook from OSEC. And that brings us to oral communications number 2. I had seen Michelle Salmon raising her hand during other discussion, so I will invite her up.
Michelle Salmon, Brisbane resident, round 2. One of the things I forgot to say when I was talking about the Google buses is enforcement of the interim use permit that was approved. I read parts of it in the Planning Commission, but I never saw what the final draft was. But I know from discussions that they had talked about the lights pointing down instead of out, and there being no dust. And I can't believe those are solar powered lights that they're using. So I would like enforcement of at least what the interim use permit stated. We seem to have a lot of problems with enforcement of variances and permits and things that we allow, and then later down the road there's never an enforcement of a mechanism to enforce to make sure that the conditions that were under which those things were granted are followed up with. I do want to talk a little bit about the Star City Music Festival. I'm sorry, I participated heavily for 3 years in it, and I know that it was not a financial success, and I could not see how it could become a financial success. But the things that I do want to say about it were that it was an amazing event every single year, and the musicality that was brought to those of that event was far superior than almost anything we've heard at a concert in the park in Brisbane. And it was absolutely at the same high level of musicality that Live at Mission Blue was. It's just a different genre. And I think that if we are going to move forward with having a Saturday festival, or even with the different things that we're doing, I think it would be appropriate to invite Jimmy Leslie to participate in that, and maybe certainly not at the financial level and the financial outlay that a paid concert in the park like we had involved. But what he brought to the table was simply amazing, that we should have that caliber of bands play here in Brisbane. I don't know if all of you attended it, but I certainly did. And a lot of other people did, and it was amazing. And to just say, okay, well, it didn't work out financially, let's just drop it, I don't think is really fair. I think you really need to give it, some chance to mutate into something different. I'm kind of tired of hearing the same old cover bands at concerts in the park. I really don't go much anymore because it's the same old stuff. And Jimmy Leslie brought some really new and different and amazing stuff to the stage here in Brisbane. And I think that I kind of think that we should give him the chance to do that again, and only under a different financial set of circumstances, something that is more palatable and more reasonable. And I know we already spend a lot of money on things like Day in the Park, but like Cliff said, the race the past year was very successful. The people that came were amazed at the mountain. They were amazed at the festival. I talked to many of them. And so just to say, oh, we're not going to do any more, I think that we're letting go of something that is worth re-examining under a different set of circumstances and a different financial plan. So I'm just going to put it out there. And then the other thing I did want to bring up is that this year, San Bruno Mountain Watch is, we call it our 2020 50th Fest, or whatever. We really haven't settled on exactly what we're calling it, but we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of fighting to save San Bruno Mountain, in particular David Scully's involvement in that. And we have a series of events that are going to be happening around the mountain, but a lot of them are here in Brisbane, starting on March 7th with a kickoff at 47 Hills Brewery in South San Francisco. And I hear rumor that we're actually going to have a Mission Blue brew, a special beer for that. And it'll wind up eventually on May 2nd with a big party, festival, gala, fundraiser at the Genesis Towers in South City. And everyone is invited to that. Tickets will be, not cheap, but definitely reasonable. And all the money, of course, goes to San Bruno Mountain Watch to help us continue to fund our efforts to save San Bruno Mountain. So I hope the city will really participate. They are helping to sponsor a day-long seminar on April 19th at the Mission Blue Center on San Bruno, on the science and the biology of San Bruno Mountain. It's just fascinating. It's $25 a ticket, and it's well worth coming. So we have some incredible experts that are coming to speak at that. So there's a lot of activities. We have our first tentative list of activities up on the Mountain Watch website. There will be two full moon quarry road walks like we used to do. And so look for those also. That obviously will be on the full moon. So I hope you come and participate. And then also on March 18th, Wednesday, March 18th, Open Space and Ecology Committee is having a climate action plan Jeopardy game right here in this very room, with food, and that'll be led by Beth Grossman and sponsored by Open Space and Ecology. So I hope everybody will attend that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on oral communications number 2? Seeing none, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Bernice Arthurs. And thank you all very much.